Okay, so shall we start?
Managing Director, thank you very much for this opportunity.
What we are seeing is indeed a slow growth this year and for the next 5 years. And part of this is countries that have contributed significantly to growth in the past, like China or South Korea, by converging with more mature economies, naturally go to a lower growth path. But China this year is expected to contribute 1/3 of global growth. We project 5.2% growth for China. And in that sense, China will continue, although to a lesser extent, to be a positive contributor to growth for its own people and for Asia and more broadly for the world. Our analysis shows that 1% higher growth in China translates into 0.3% higher growth in the countries China trades more actively, and that means primarily for Asia. When we think of the future drivers of growth, we expect that there will be some pickup coming from other emerging market economies. But we are very concerned that a significant number of countries, low-income countries, more fragile middle-income countries, are not moving in this higher growth trajectory, and they need help if they are to be contributors to global growth. Japan has taken its role as G7 presidency very seriously and is concentrating on issues that are very high on the priority list for us at the IMF, including how to bring more impetus for growth in the world economy. On the issue of fragmentation, what we recognize is that the security of supplies has become a much more significant priority for many economies because COVID and then Russia's war in Ukraine have demonstrated that interruption in supply chains brings tremendous cost to all countries. So we are expecting to see also during the Japanese presidency more attention to how to strengthen security of supplies. Our analysis shows that it can be done with less or more negative impact on growth. So what we want is to contribute to the discussion on how it can be done with lowest possible impact on growth. Just to give you one example, we see the decisions made around trade leading to impact longer term on global growth between 0.2% and 7%. Coming closer to the 0.2% should be our objective, and I very much look forward to the decisive Chinese participation in discussions related to trade, that China continues to open up, as the Chinese premier assured me the country intends to do, and also to how we can have, through the Japanese G7 presidency, more attention to fairness in trade, respect for rule of law, so we can bring the cost closer to the lower end, not allow it to go too high. We have been quite clear that the objective of strengthening supply chains does have also geopolitical component, because reliability of supplies is not only an economic matter. This being said, we are very much encouraging countries to work on economic fundamentals as the foundation of making decisions for supply chains. Because if they don't, there would be two consequences. One, costs will go up. And we know today that one of the big concerns in the world economy is inflation. When costs go up, they add pressure on prices. And the second consequence is the indirect impact on smaller economies that are dependent on participation in supply chains that may be affected as innocent bystanders. So more forward thinking in these decisions is necessary to make sure that producers and consumers in the world are not negatively impacted. China needs to engage in multilateral debt restructuring prudently and in a timely fashion. China has become a significant source of credits to developing countries. Now, with many of these developing countries faced with debt distress, there has to be concerted global effort to bring debt levels down, and those efforts must include China. The role of China is therefore twofold. One, to participate in discussions and decisions on debt restructuring on a case-by-case basis through the common framework for debt resolution, as well as through multilateral efforts like the one currently underway for Sri Lanka, where Japan plays a very positive and constructive role. Second, China needs to engage fully in discussing processes and standards. We have just put together a new global sovereign debt roundtable, which brings everybody around the same table, traditional and new public creditors, private creditors, and debtor countries, together with the institutions, the IMF, the World Bank, and the G20, that play an important role by bringing that decision-making process forward. China engaged so far constructively, and it is very important that China understands why multilateral solutions are much better than bilateral action. Because in multilateral solutions, the IMF and the World Bank and others will come with fresh resources to support countries undergoing debt restructuring, so they can come back to a trajectory for sound growth, and then being better off for their own people, but also for the global community. I wish him all the very best. He is going to have a particularly challenging time, as all his colleagues central bankers have today. What we are certain we would see is the same attention to fundamentals in deciding on monetary policy in Japan, as we have had so far. Japan's outlook has improved with the pent-up demand now being unleashed, with the reopening of borders, and with policy support. We expect growth of around 1.3% this year. We would see for the first time in a long period of time inflation coming up 3.5%, but then going down to around 2%. This would be the environment within which the new governor of Bank of Japan will make decisions. We think that some additional flexibility in monetary policy is warranted in these conditions, and we have provided in our article for discussions some specific recommendations of how this flexibility could be achieved. We very much look forward to continue our very good cooperation with Bank of Japan in the years to come. Yes, definitely. Should the needs be there, we actually have looked into what more could be done on the 10-year yield, what more could be done to create that space for some additional flexibility. Again, it is data dependent, and what the data would tell Bank of Japan may very well be that this some additional flexibility is warranted.